1.2 is on page 17, talks about applications of propositional logic. So we start off by translating, and actually that's the only part we want to focus on out of this section. We're going to barely touch on it. Translating English sentences into logical equivalents. Keep in mind when you see the word P only if Q, that means P implies Q. And remember, P implies Q means if P, then Q. And the way it works, just a quick reminder. If P happens, then you expect Q to happen. If that's the case, then no issue there. That is a check. If P happens and Q doesn't happen, then we have a contradiction. If P doesn't happen, if P is false, then whether Q is false or true is irrelevant. Something like, if it rains, then there must be clouds. If it rains, there must be clouds. That is true. If it rains and there are no clouds, then that's a contradiction. If it doesn't rain, you could have clouds or you could not have clouds. Either of those is considered true. So remember that. Now, so here we have the following statement. We want to translate it. Translate the given statements into propositional logic using propositions provided. All right. It says here, you can see the movie only if you are over 18 or you have the permission from parents. Well, let's see. Express your answer in terms M. They're making that the red statement. You could see the actual movie. So that is M. Only if E. You are over 18 or you have your parents' permission. And that's really what you test. That's how we're going to translate those statements into logical equivalence and test them, see if they're valid or not. Here's another problem. To use wireless service, to use wireless network in the airport, you must pay the daily fees unless you are a subscriber to the service. And they label, let W be the, you can use the wireless service. Let D pay means you pay the daily fees, and let S means you are a subscriber to the service. So in this case, the way this works, you could use the wireless service if you pay, you must pay, unless, isn't that really, or you have the subscription? So for now, we're just translating, we're not testing, and that's coming up later. And this is a bit lengthy, but let me elaborate really quick. So I read this already. Let's see what they read. They say, look, B32 means you have 32-bit. B64 means you have 64-bit processor. G1 means you're running at 1 gig or faster. G2 means you're running at 2 gig or faster. R1 means your processor has at least 1 gig of RAM. R2 means your processor has at least 2 gig of RAM. H16 means you have at least 16 gigabyte of free hard drive, and H32 means you have at least 32 gigabyte of free hard drive. And here it says you could upgrade, and they're using for upgrade the letter U. So here they're saying you can upgrade your operating system only if. You can upgrade your operating system only if you have 32-bit processor. At means it's and. At 1 gigabyte, and what was, oh, G1. And at least 1 gig of RAM, that's R1. And at least 16 meg of hard drive. Or or 64-bit processor running at 2 gig. So just match those, go with the G2 now for the 2 gig. And I'm guessing what else? At least 2 gig of RAM and at least a hard drive space of 32. Now testing those is a different story, but that's really how you set them up. That's how you translate, and you figure out which of those is true and which of those is false, and so on and so forth. Now, express the system specifications using the proposition P. The user enter a password. Q. Access is granted. R. The user has paid the subscription fee. So A, when it says if the user has paid the subscription, that is R. But when you look at but means does not enter the password. That's really and. Does not enter the, entering the password is P, not entering the password. Access is granted. Access is granted is really, where's access is granted? Q. Access is granted whenever the user has paid the subscription, and so you could access, we said that was P, you could access the network if you would have, I'm messing the colors up, I apologize. You know what, let me just stick with the letters. You could access the computer if the user have paid the subscription okay, I'm messing things up. Let me read it again. Okay, one more time. Access is granted. Access is granted. Oh, that wasn't P, that was Q. So you can access provided you either pay the subscription and you input the correct password. C, access is denied if, so you're not gonna get the access if you did not pay. Pay is R. Not paying will implies not getting the service. And the last one says, if the user has not entered a valid password, but means and we said, has paid the subscription fee, then access is granted. And that's pretty much it for this section. Again, we're barely touching this center, but this section, we're just gonna focus on this part, and we will use that in other sections.